Hi Superstars, thanks so much for spending this time with me today. I'm Debbie Starr, the writer of In the Waiting, which is a blog I created on WRStar.com. It's where I share my story of going from being a movie marathoner to running 3 half marathons in 1 year's time. Today, I'm going to chat with you about my Noah's Ark experience. So, this year for spring break, our family decided just to do a quick weekend getaway. And so we visited the Ark experience in Kentucky along with a creation museum. So I highly recommend if you go, take a couple days to go through it, get the 2-day ticket, and definitely go to one museum one day and the next museum the other, because there was so much more at the Ark than what we thought there would be. We thought we would just be showing up, seeing this giant boat, reading a couple things, and then be in and out quick, but it wasn't. It was an entire museum inside. So how does this all pertain to health and fitness and weight loss? Well, basically while I was there, I was just totally surprised and overwhelmed of how long it took. I mean, I've heard the story of Noah and building the Ark multiple times. Our oldest son, his name is Noah. And in Genesis, when you talk about creation, all that kind of stuff, I've heard the story of Noah a lot, and Noah's Ark and all the animals 2 by 2 and that kind of whole thing. But I was really blown away when I realized they don't know exactly how long it took him to build the Ark, but they believe it was around 100 years. And I was like, oh my goodness, 100 years? 100 years. It's like, I think of all the different things that God has asked me to do, or whatever the project is, or whatever it is that God's wanting me to focus on. And then to imagine that God has me working on this, and I've been working on it for like 10 years, decades, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever. And people around me are mocking me or saying negative things. It's like, I can't even imagine, but it just shows the faithfulness that Noah had and how much Noah loved God. And the other thing that showed me about Noah's faithfulness was the fact that the only people that were saved were 8 people out of everybody in the entire world at that time. The only godly people was Noah and his wife and his 3 godly sons, who all chose godly women. And so our prayer for our family is also for our 3, to raise 3 godly sons and our daughter, but then for them to also grow up and all to marry good godly women and a husband someday for our baby girls. So it just was awesome to me to show how Noah was really focused on the right things. He was focused on what God had asked of him and the task that God gave for him to do, specifically just for him to work on. And also the fact that he was focused on his family. He loved God, he loved his family, and he was obedient, and he did what God asked. So I took all that in, and I then kind of really digested it for my weight loss journey, what I'm doing. And so I would ask you, superstars, what is it that God has asked of you? I know all of our journeys are going to look different, because there's only one of us. We're all different and unique. And even with identical twins, which when we went this weekend, we met up with my husband, who is an identical twin, and his older twin, who lives in Kentucky. We met up with him and his family. And even though they're identical twins, they're totally different and unique in their own different characteristics. So no one is exactly like you. My husband is a great builder. He's great with his hands. He's able to see something, walk into something that's depletated and like fallen apart, and he can envision something and create and get that stirring, and then he can go build it and create it. And then my brother-in-law, Bernie, he's an amazing musician. He works with his hands drumming and things like that, and he has different talents and designs by doing signs and that kind of design work that he does now. But everyone has a different, unique thing that God has asked of you. So superstars, I would say, what is that? Take some time alone with God to really reflect. What is it that God has asked you to do? Maybe you're not a runner. Maybe you are a runner like me and you're training for another race, or you're adding some more mileage, or trying to get up your speed. But maybe God has called you to do something else. Maybe you're going to do triathlons. Maybe you're going to do CrossFit, weightlifting competitions. Maybe God is just asking you to get healthy so that you can get off of your blood pressure medications. Maybe it's so that you can be healthy for your kids and for your grandkids and be active again. Whatever it is that God has called you to do, sometimes on that journey, it might feel like it's taken 100 years for us to see anything happening, to see any change. But bit by bit, board by board, Noah built that ark. And God is going to do something amazing also for you. And when I think about the fact of how Noah's decision affected not just him, but his entire family, his wife and his sons and his daughter-in-laws, and then his entire family heritage was all affected by the choices that he made by being obedient to God. And so I look at that in my own health too, of how the healthy choices that I make is going to bless my family. The unhealthy choices that I make, habits and addictions and things like that I had in the past, and I'm so thankful that it's gone. I used to smoke, and when I smoked, it was robbing my health, but also robbing my money. And, doing things, any type of addictions, any type of negative things that you have. Maybe it's fast food. Maybe every day you're eating out at fast food and you're spending 15, 20 bucks on lunch, and that's eating away, at not only your health, but then also your budget. So whatever it is that God has called you to do, whatever it is that God is saying, take a look at this and do this, I just would encourage you superstars to be obedient, because that obedience, God is always going to meet you. You might feel like there's no way I can build this entire ark, or there's no way I can lose this 50 pounds, or there's no way I could ever run a half marathon. There's no way I could ever run a mile. Whatever that is that you feel like no way, if God is asking you to do it, he's going to help you and he's going to equip you. As long as you're obedient and you're doing what you can do, God will meet you and do what he can do. He'll step in and do the rest. We can do all things through Christ who give us strength. And I truly 100% believe that. I've seen it over and over and over again in my own life and friends and family's lives. But I also know what it's like sometimes to struggle. Since we got home this week has been out of sorts for me. It's not been my normal week because I lost some sleep, and this girl needs her sleep. So I went late nights and, of course, visiting with family and talking and not going to bed on time. And so then we got up early and we were traveling and all this kind of stuff. So my sleep got messed up. And so then we came back this week, and it's literally been like Noah's Ark. It's been raining this entire week, completely gray, gloomy days. And so it's been hard to get up, and a struggle to get up and get my workouts in and get going and to keep myself motivated and lace up and go out there when it's like blah, versus when it's sunshine and the birds are chirping and singing you a little song. It's a lot easier some days. But when you push through those times, that's where the change happens. That's when you get dedicated. That's when you get disciplined. That's when you're like, no, okay, I can do this. And in those times when it's hard to push through, a lot of times it's right before your breakthrough. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever taken on any kind of project, even if it's cleaning out the fridge, a closet, or whatever, when you're about halfway through that project, sometimes you get overwhelmed. You're like, what the heck was I thinking? Why did I even think about getting into this? But that's usually, you're always about halfway or a little over halfway, and you get those feelings like you want to quit, throwing the towel, you're overwhelmed. But once you keep going, the project gets finished, and then you have a nice cleaned out fridge or closet that's organized, and you can use more space and you get rid of the clutter and don't have as much headache. But whatever it is in your health and your fitness journey, I just, want to encourage you superstars to take that moment to really pray, get alone with God, ask what God is asking of you in this season of your life, and then be obedient and do those things. And then as you do, God, you're just going to look back one day and see a reflection. This week I had to do that. I had to go and look at past pictures of myself to realize, okay, I might not be as far along in my journey as I want to be, because I have the certain number I want to see on the scale, and I have the certain, time I want to have, be a fast runner and all this kind of stuff. But I can take a look back and look at how far I've came. And as you're along on this journey, I definitely encourage you, take pictures, take measurements. Remember, write down, you keep score, you do more. Write down when you're lifting weights, the reps and the amount of weight that you're lifting. Write down how many push-ups you can do. Write down how fast you went and keep track of your mileage, because that all then allows you to go back on those rough days and those times that you're having a struggle to get going to see, wow, progression is happening. I am getting stronger. Things are happening. And yes, I am shrinking. Yes, I am losing weight. I am getting stronger. I am getting to a smaller size. Because along our journey, like I said in my video last week about beware the snakes, there's going to be people that are being negative, and you're going to need to always encourage yourself. You're going to have to be your own coach some days and your own cheerleader, because even sometimes people within your family will mock you and, say negative things about you. And I thought about that when I was there, about how Noah's was the only one in his family who was spared. Now, in the Bible, it tells us that his grandfather was a godly man, and he lived to almost 1,000 years old. He was like 969 years old or 996 years old. But anyways, whatever the number was, he was almost 1,000 years old, and he was a good godly man. So that made me think about my grandfather, who was a good godly man. I always saw him reading the Bible. I always saw him soaking up God's word. And I always saw him hungry and desired for what God's word was and what God's standards were, and to live by like that. And so for me, it just made me realize, oh my goodness, Noah was the only person. So I'm just assuming that Noah had brothers and sisters. I'm assuming that his grandfather didn't only have one child, but maybe Noah was, I don't know. But it just made me think that sometimes in our life, we're going to feel like we're the only ones in our family that are doing this, or the only ones that agree with this, or whatever. But it doesn't matter. All that matters is your relationship with God, because eventually one day our children won't be with us, our spouses won't be with us. It'll just be us alone with God. And we want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. And so, superstars, my prayer always for you is that you would make healthy choices while you're in the waiting. And if you could, share this video with anybody that you feel like could use this information, that this would be encouraging to, and give a little like, because that's my tip jar. Anyways, my prayer for you is always that you would make healthy choices while you're in the waiting.